Welcome to the most electrifying podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is Grant Mitchell. He watched Jayson Tatum put on the greatest Game 7 playoff performance of all time, and you can't teach that. Bada boom. Man, the people in the room, welcome to Ride the Line, Grant.
Electric as always, Tanner. Yeah, that was definitely the best Game 7 that I've ever seen. No doubt about it. I mean, a couple weeks ago, we were saying about Steph because he scored 50 points. But, I mean, you can't argue with what Tatum did. That was just unbelievable, hands down.
He tormented the entire city of Philadelphia. He demoralized them. He did everything nasty to them. It was awesome to see. He put the city of Boston on his back. And you knew after he said that, humbly, I'm one of the best players in the world, he was going to pop off in Game 7. He had to, and he did that. So very fun to watch, especially as a Celtics fan, Grant. I'm going all the way to the NBA Finals. Just watch.
You know what's actually pretty cool about that moment, though? Because a lot of people were saying that it's inherently not humble to say it like that. I understand what he was saying, because there have been situations that I've been in where it's, let's say you're working on a project at school with a group, and you say, humbly, I have the most experience in this. I have the most, knowledge about this subject. Or, in the real world, when you're trying to build something, you say, humbly, I have done this before. None of you have. Let me kind of show you what we're supposed to do. I understood what Tatum was saying. I didn't think it was bragging at all. He's right. He finished 4th in MVP voting. This is a guy many people think is going to win an MVP pretty soon. He is one of the best basketball players on earth, and he absolutely proved it in Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like PJ Tucker's out there saying, hey, humbly, I'm one of the best players in the world. Like, it's Jayson Tatum. Like, Jayson Tatum is the balls. That's what it comes down to. He's the face of the Boston Celtics. And as much as I love Jaylen Brown, when the game's on the line, I want Jayson Tatum to touch the basketball. So we're going to break that all down on the show, Grant. But this is Ride the Line, another episode, another week, Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to everyone. We're recording on Tuesday, but it is now Wednesday when you're listening. And you should subscribe to the podcast.
Yep. Do us all a favor. Hit subscribe, like the video, comment. Let us know which games. We're going to be talking about these pretty soon. So let us know what your favorite betting picks are for these games.
Yeah, we're very excited about that, guys. So make sure you drop your comments in the comment section. Reply to any posts we have on Twitter. Head over to WSN.com for all your sportsbook promo deals and all our content. We'll be writing the game previews for this series. Grant has the Western Conference. I have the Eastern Conference. So very excited about that, and check it out and interact with the content.
Yep, and Tanner, you brought us in talking about Tatum, so why don't we start with him? The Boston Celtics knocked out the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 7 at home. It was tied at 55, and then they go on a 30-2 run or whatever the heck it was. Tatum scores 51 points on 61%, makes 6 threes. He was unstoppable from the get-go, and we've talked about on this show how he's pretty inconsistent. Granted, he usually delivers in the fourth quarter like we saw in Game 6 to even force the Game 7. But that Game 7 from start to finish was just a masterclass.
Game 6 for me was more impressive, honestly, out of Tatum, because I think it takes more mental toughness to be terrible for 3 quarters and put your team on the line in a high pressure situation. Like, as Tatum's dropping 51 in Game 7, like, he was just having fun for the majority of those points in the second half. Like, we knew the Celtics were going to win that game. And Joe Mazzulla leaving him on the floor, I think, is a different issue. Like, he left him and Jaylen Brown out there a little too long for my comfort. But Game 6, I think, to have that mental toughness to say, hey, I'm going to take over the game in the fourth quarter when I've been terrible and still take shots, that's pretty impressive. I think that shows maturity. As great as he was in Game 7, I knew he was going to be a good in Game 7. You can't say humbly you're one of the best players in the world, not be good after that.
I was actually a little worried that he wasn't going to be great in Game 7. Maybe like we talk about with Tatum, sometimes he's great in a quarter, bad in a quarter. I was wondering maybe if we're going to get another one of those. But no, he had the pressure on him to step up in Game 7, and he absolutely did. I'm not going to go quite as far as to say, and maybe I'm mishearing what you're saying. I don't think Tatum's Game 6 performance overall was that impressive. I mean, he still shot 5 of 21 from the field.
Mental toughness, that's what I'm saying. The
intangibles of it. That's what was most impressive. You're absolutely spot on with that, because especially for shooters, this isn't like a quarterback who's struggling with the wind and he can't complete a pass. This isn't a baseball player who used to be a slugger and he just can't get his timing right at the plate. Things like that are going to come back with basketball because there's so many actions. I mean, think about how frequently he shoots the ball. Once every minute or two, he's on the court, and his team's relying on him. It's the pressurized moments. It's win or go home. To be able to snap out of a streak where he was awful in the first half for 3 straight games. He was like one of 20 something for 3 straight games in the first half. So to be able to do that in the fourth quarter, it was just hands down unreal.
Yeah, the game 6 pressure was definitely higher than game 7 toward down the stretch, because in game 6, like, there was a chance they were going to lose that game. Sixers had a big lead, but it was also a sign to looking at the Sixers that Tatum was so bad through 3 quarters in game 6. They still couldn't score 100 points and couldn't put a lead up on the Boston Celtics. As bad as Tatum was, like, that's scary for Philadelphia, and they need to take a long, hard look in the mirror in the offseason and figure out how they're going to get better, because they're not going to get past the Boston Celtics right now.
Yeah, and that long, hard look in the mirror starts with James Harden, because there's been a lot of rumors that he wants out. He wants to go back to Houston. And just today, there was a report, well, the day before you're hearing the podcast, Tuesday, there was a report that Harden doesn't want to play for Doc Rivers. Now, I'm interested to get your opinion on this, because it's very possible that both Harden and Doc Rivers are gone next year. Doc said he has 2 more years left in him coaching, wants to be in Philadelphia. So I would put it to you this way. I would say if you can only keep one or the other, James Harden or Doc Rivers, who are you going for? And I'll start. I'll give you time to think. I'm going with Doc Rivers, because James Harden is on the decline. He's clearly past his prime, and he's on his way down. Somebody, a friend of mine, texted me, and he asked me, where do I rank James Harden amongst the current point guards? Because one of his other friends had said that he thought Harden was still a top 5 point guard in the league. So I was just running through some names. I said all the players that I think are better than James Harden right now at the point guard position. And feel free to chime in as we go through. I had Steph Curry, agree, obviously. Luka, agree, obviously. De'Aaron Fox, so that's 3. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I had ahead of him. Drew Holiday for his defensive impact on the game, so that was 5. I had Tyrese Halliburton was my most controversial one. Jamal Murray his name was brought up. I didn't quite have him on my list. Jamal Murray and LaMelo Ball were just about 50-50s for me, especially with LaMelo, considering he's going to get better. And I'm actually about who am I missing?
Marcus Smart.
No, that I'm not missing. Jalen Brunson. I'm missing. I'm missing Jalen Brunson. Trae Young. I'm missing. I had to pull up the standings and refresh my memory. Ja Morant, obviously better than James Harden. And I think that pretty much did it for my list. So that's pretty much 10 guys who I think right now are ahead of Harden. So I'm moving off of Harden. And I know everybody likes to give Doc crap because he's lost more game 7s than any coach. He's lost more 3-1 leads than any coach. He's blown more 3-2 leads than any coach. I get all of that. I can't really blame the game 7 loss on Doc. I can blame the game 6 loss on Doc. Joel Embiid, the MVP, doesn't touch the ball for the final 4 minutes. It's inexcusable. You got to find a way to scheme it up and give him the ball. But game 7, he had the Sixers coming out hard. They were winning early. They had their scheme going for him. First of all, it was just Tatum was just at this unbelievable level. And he's like that. There's really nothing you can do. You're at his mercy. But he was making all sorts of adjustments to Tatum. He was switching the coverages. They were switching. They were blitzing. They were playing drop. They were blitzing the pick and roll. They were doing everything they could. And Tatum was just beating them no matter what. So I don't think that game 7 was fully on Doc. And for that reason, I'm going with Doc. I'm keeping Doc, letting Harden go.
I'm keeping Doc. Doc can't go out there and make shots for him. You look at the game 7 numbers, at least. Tobias Harris had a good night. Tyrese Maxey had a good night. PJ Tucker had 11 points. When are you ever going to get PJ Tucker to have 11 points? It all came down to Joel Embiid did not get the job done down low, and James Harden did not get the job shooting from the perimeter. And that was the case in the games they lost. If you look at the wins for the Sixers, it corresponds with a James Harden night, like a really good night from him. And when they lost, he did not do it. He did not get the job done there. So I can't blame Doc here. Doc did everything he could in game 7. He can't go out there and make shots from his stars. And, Joel Embiid after the game saying me and Harden can't win the game for us. Like, the other guys around him stepped up. They were just terrible, both of them. And they got outplayed by the Jayson Tatum Boston Celtics.
And it is important to mention that quote was slightly taken out of context because Harden did talk about how they're the other parts of the team and, we're all one unit and all that stuff. But still, to include that at the end, even though, again, it's out of context, it wasn't the main focus of what he was saying, but just don't say it at all. Because to say me and James can't do everything by ourselves, you were arguably Philadelphia's two worst players in that game, or at least you were the most damaging compared to where your standard is, what the team needs you to be, and where you were actually at. Those were the two worst players on Philadelphia. So, yeah, I didn't like Joel Embiid saying that. Joel Embiid, I feel I don't know what to think about him, man, because I understand that he's always injured in the playoffs. Keep in mind, he has the LCL problem, so he's not fully healthy. And I don't quite want to call him a full-on choker because he has an excuse. And although it's an excuse, it's a valid excuse. He is injured all the time, but you got to make the conference finals at some point. You can't just keep getting bounced in rounds 1 and 2.
No, you can't. And it comes down to stars in the playoffs. Stars win games and win championships in the playoffs. If you take Jayson Tatum away from the Celtics, they don't win the series. But you know what? He's supposed to go out and win those games because he is Jayson Tatum. Same thing for Jaylen Brown. The same should be applied to Joel Embiid and James Harden. If those guys step up, they have a great chance to win. I mean, the Sixers team is pretty good on paper, but the two main playmakers were not making plays when they needed to in crunch time, and that is why they are vacationing right now and in the offseason.
Yeah, and Harden, 9 points, 7 assists. For somebody who had two 40-point games, tied his playoff career high, had 2 game-winning 3-pointers in this series.
Nobody cares.
None of it matters anymore. He had built up so much goodwill to erasing his legacy, or at least starting to put some white out over his legacy of being a choker in the playoffs. And he just undid all of it in the game 6, fourth quarter, and game 7. He was just awful.
Yeah. So Grant, anyways, Jayson Tatum has a massive unit. We know that. Freaking huge. Now, where do you think he stands in his NBA legacy right now? I think he's going to go down as one of the best basketball players of all time. He's only 25 years old, 24, 25.
Well, there's a popular meme that he's still only 19 years old, but yeah, I think he is 25.
25 years old. Like, he's got a lot of basketball left to be played, and there's very few players when they're on in the NBA, no matter how good they are, that they are unstoppable. Like, Tatum was hitting contested threes. Tatum wanted people in his face to make all these threes just to freaking posterize them every time he shot the damn basketball.
And Tatum, to his detriment, he seeks out difficult shots. His idol is Kobe Bryant, and Kobe is the best difficult shot maker in league history, although he was accused of taking hard shots too many times. Tatum has that same gene in him. If he has an open lane to the basket, he's going to do a reverse pivot fadeaway from out of bounds instead of taking the easy layup. He wants the difficult shots, but he was making all of them. So I totally agree with you there. I would say the short list of players who can just go nuclear hot: Steph Curry, obviously. Dame Lillard, obviously. Luka Doncic is on that list. Devin Booker's on that list. And Jayson Tatum is on that list. And there are other players who can get hot, obviously. KD, Ja, other guys like that. But as far as just shooting the basketball from ridiculous angles and expecting it to go in, Tatum's certainly on a very short list. Where is he as far as his basketball legacy? We got to keep in mind, Tatum has made the playoffs every year he's been in the league, 6 years. He's made the conference finals 4 times in 6 years, and that started when he was a rookie. He has a chance to make it to his second NBA finals. I mean, Michael Jordan didn't win his first title till he was 28. LeBron didn't win his first title till he was 27. And I know that Tatum wasn't great last year in the finals, but as long as he uses that experience and bounces back, again, I just talked about LeBron. Look how bad he was when he played the Dallas Mavericks. The Heat were such huge favorites, and LeBron averaged less than 20 points a game, was extremely inefficient. So Tatum has a perfect opportunity to, like you said, start the career of one of the best basketball players of all time. He's on the trajectory. He just became the first Celtics player ever. Think about how many great people have passed through Boston. He was the first Celtics player ever to average 30 points a game in the regular season. He's well on his way to legitimately being a top 25 player of all time. Now, that's going to be contingent upon, does he win MVPs? Does he win championships? Obviously. But at this stage, he's exactly where he needs to be.
Yeah, and I think he's going to go down as one of the greatest Celtics of all time. And we see he's only 25. They are in prime shape to win a title this season. If they don't win a title, it will be very upsetting because this is a great year to do it with the competition that they have in their path. It's not going to stop now. My one fear, too, I think, though, is like what's going to happen with Jaylen Brown. Is Jaylen Brown going to be a Boston Celtic? And if he's not, you're going to obviously lose a huge component of Jayson Tatum's game, because when he's not on, Jaylen Brown's there to pick up the pieces as far as winning championships and winning games go. So they'll have to fill that void, because I don't think Jaylen Brown will be there. I don't know if you have a take in the coming
I don't
season.
think he wants to be there. I mean, these press conferences, unless these press conferences are some sort of long-running negotiation tactic for his contract, I just don't think he likes having his name thrown up in trade rumors every year. I don't think that he was supposed to be the centerpiece of a trade package to get Kevin Durant when he had just swept Durant out of the playoffs. And Jaylen Brown has been awesome. He's been awesome. He's shooting over 40% from three. He averaged 27 points a game this season, second team All-NBA. Now that All-NBA part is kind of important here, because that means he's eligible to make about $40 million more than he would if he decided to go elsewhere. So is that going to influence his decision? If the Celtics win a title, there's basically no chance that he leaves. So there's a lot still to be determined in this Brown saga. But if it was right here, right now, I think he would be just as likely to leave as he would be to stay. There's just he just makes weird comments at the press conferences.
Yeah, especially too, saying how TD Garden hasn't been that loud. TD Garden's been pretty damn loud. Jaylen Brown.
I mean, what he did, though, what he set out to do worked, because it was rocking in Game 7.
But it was loud. I mean, it was loud the entire series. I don't know what he was talking about there. But anyways, Grant, let's move on to what matters now, because the Sixers they're vacationing. Joel Embiid's listening to this podcast and probably on a cruise or something right now. So let's talk Celtics versus Heat. Celtics laying 8 points in Game 1 on Wednesday night. This is a big spread. Again, these games are very tough to bet when you have a heavy favorite in the playoffs, because at home they're always going to be 8 to 10 point favorites, and on the road they're still going to be 3 to 4 point favorites. Drift down to 2 points if the Celtics are struggling with the Heat, but for the most part they're going to be favored in every game of this series. So Grant, where are you leaning for Game 1?
This is a no-brainer. This is the Miami Heat at plus way. Lock it up. Take it straight to the bank. This is highway robbery for anyone that bets Celtics -8. Look, the Celtics might win this game. I'm not discounting that as a possibility. But this is Jimmy Butler. He raises his game in the playoffs more than any player. The Heat have played the Celtics in 3 of the last 4 conference finals. They are extremely familiar with one another. We have seen the Heat go on the road and cause problems for teams in Game 1. Guess what? They just did it to the Bucks, and they did it to the Knicks. It's nothing new for them. Again, they might lose. Who cares? But it's 8 points. It's such a large spread that I've got to take the Heat. I just have to.
I have to take the Heat here as well, even though I believe in the Boston Celtics. I do think we're going to see the Jaylen Brown masterclass in Game 1. I think Tatum's going to be off his game, because that's Jayson Tatum. He's up and down and up and down. He's coming off a great 51-point performance. He can't match that. I think Jaylen Brown steps up. And also, Brown has averaged over 30 points against the Heat this season, so look for him to go over his point total there. I like the Heat at +8. I like the Celtics to win the game. I do think the Celtics are the better team, but saying they're -550 to win this series is definitely a little disrespectful, knowing how Boston plays down to opponents, and they like games going 7, or like series going 7. I mean, they just beat the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals last year in 7 games. So it wouldn't surprise me if this series goes 6 or definitely 7 games, and Boston has to win at home to go to the NBA Finals in Game 7.
And to your Jaylen Brown point, he is probably the most physical player on the Celtics, especially amongst the wings and the guards. So he fits up. There's a good stylistic matchup for him in the series, because the Heat, they want to play defense. They want to be physical. Not that Tatum and the other guys, Marcus Smart, can't hold up with that. But Brown, I think, is the one who has his offense least affected by that, because he's used to playing through contact. So I think he'll be just fine. I think that's a very good bet. I'd be interested to see what his points are for his player prop line. But most likely, I would be going with the over, just guessing it's somewhere in the 24 to 26 region.
Yep, 24 now.
As far as the series price, again, Heat +390. That is so much more attractive than -550. You should never bet -550 odds unless it's Wilt Chamberlain playing one-on-one in a rebounding battle against Muggsy Bogues. Then sure, go for -550. But other than that, don't do it. Now, I'm not necessarily saying to bet the Heat at +390. But I said they're meeting in the 3rd of the last 4 conference finals, right? What happened in the first one? The Heat won. That was the bubble year when they go on to play the Lakers in the title. Then they meet last year. Again, it goes 7 games. But not only does it go 7 games, it goes to the very last shot. Jimmy Butler has a 3-pointer with less than 30 seconds left. And if he makes that shot, the Heat are most likely going to the NBA Finals. So to say that it's as lopsided as -550, especially with the turnaround that we've seen from the Heat, and Tanner, you've got to agree with me on this. The coaching mismatch Joe Mazzulla,
Huge.
great job in game 7. It was not a coaching thing. It was just a Tatum was at another level, an untouchable level. It was not a Mazzulla thing. And Eric Spoelstra, the best coach in the NBA, made his adjustments. He's doing it with a limited rotation of players. And Tyler Hero, there's a slight chance that he could come back towards the end of this series or the NBA Finals. I'm going to go, if I had to say what's the more attractive series price, it's obviously the Heat at plus 390. Now, again, depending on your willingness to do that, not saying to bet it, but don't bet Celtics minus 550.
I would wait too. If the Celtics win, that plus 390 is going to go up to plus 500. If you truly believe the Heat are going to win the series, I don't. I look at Jimmy Butler, obviously can take over a game. Jayson Tatum can take over a game. Jaylen Brown can take over a game. The star power is much better for the Boston Celtics. This Heat team outside of Jimmy Butler is not very good. So if Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are decent throughout the series, it should be a no-brainer. We'll see.
We will see. I'm very interested to see what happens in this game. I think we've got a couple of great matchups in these conference finals.
Yeah, definitely. And Lakers Nuggets is going to be another good one. This series should be a lot more competitive than Celtics Heat on paper, at least. I do like the Nuggets to win game 1. Now, this is happening the night we're recording, but the Lakers throughout the series is going to be a very nice bet. I think that could, if they lose game 1, their series price probably goes up to about 2-1 odds, and then that's the time to hammer them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very interesting matchup, and it's a shame that we're recording this the day of game 1 and it's getting released after game 1 because the Lakers have won game 1 on the road in both of their series so far in these playoffs. Meanwhile, the Nuggets are undefeated at home in the playoffs, so it's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And to be fair, game 1's probably going to tell us a lot about how the rest of this series goes. What I'm looking at as the defining element of this series is how do the Lakers handle the Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray pick and roll action, because that's what they're so successful at. Denver runs the pick and roll with those two, and they run dribble handoffs. Now, the Lakers were great at defending the dribble handoff against the Warriors. They did an excellent job shooting out on the shooters. They struggled a little more with the pick and roll, not because their actual coverage was bad, but because what the Warriors were doing was they were seeking out Anthony Davis, and they were saying, you're going to get involved in this action so that whenever we get the ball past you, whether it's a pocket pass to Draymond or we get Anthony Davis out in isolation on Steph Curry, we're able to swing the ball around him, and now we can make plays at the second level of the defense. And Anthony Davis, who has been the best defensive player in these playoffs by a country mile, he's no longer there clogging the middle of the paint. So now we have open passing lanes and we can do what we want. And it worked. Again, not Anthony Davis's fault. He was doing exactly what the coverage called for. It's just that the Warriors took advantage of that. What's different here is that the Nuggets, first of all, they're not going to be setting the screens as high up the court because Jokic, even though he handles the ball, he's not somebody who's as mobile as Steph Curry. Anthony Davis also doesn't have to close out as far or as hard because Jokic doesn't have the same release time or the same range as Curry. So he's going to be able to sink a little bit deeper, which is going to allow him to impact the interior a little bit better. So I think that's a little bit of an advantage for the Lakers, at least compared to how it was in the Warriors series. And again, with the dribble handoff action, I think the Lakers are very capable of switching. I mean, everybody in their starting five, aside from maybe D'Angelo Russell, you would be fine with going on an island with anybody on the Nuggets. And then D'Angelo Russell still isn't a terrible defender. You know, he can take Jamal Murray. He can take KCP for a couple possessions here and there. And then you've got Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench. You can start him in a 3-guard lineup if you want to. So I think that's going to be one of the key elements to watch in this series. I'm like you. I think the Nuggets are going to win game 1, and I've got them covering -5.5. We'll be able to check back in and see what that is. But I do already have them taken down as a series bet, the Lakers, that is, at +140. And like you said, they lose game 1, they're going down to +200 or better. Be a great time to pick them up if you still have confidence in them to win.
So I like Jokic in game 1 to step up, but I do think the Lakers are going to be able to adjust to him throughout the remainder of the series. And the Denver Nuggets have not been good in the postseason. We've seen that over the years, and this is a Jokic kind of legacy game, legacy series. But again, I think like with Jokic, it's just he's so not flashy. Like nobody really associates this with being like make or break for him. It's just, would you agree with that?
I think this is the time in his career where it's got to happen. Because, and this goes back to Joel Embiid, by the way, because Jokic caught a lot of stick for having won 2 MVPs, but never even made it to the finals. He made it to the conference finals one time. Embiid has, now he's never made the conference finals. So I think all those criticisms about Jokic, it's kind of like the Embiid voters who use that as point of their argument. They're having pie thrown in their face. So Jokic has a golden opportunity, A, because of how strong and deep his team is, but then also just that context. I think this is the year that he's got to put something together if it's going to happen for him.
And I think they have a chance to, but I do trust the Lakers overall, especially if LeBron steps up. Davis has been great, but LeBron's got to set the tone here. And we haven't seen that necessarily early in series. He's turned it on late. And I know that's just a characteristic of LeBron, but he needs to bring it on the defensive end of the floor. And he also needs to be effective from the field. Because if he can do that, it's going to take some pressure off of Anthony Davis. They can get the ball down low to him. He's going to have a battle with Nikola Jokic. So he needs to focus his full attention on that. He needs guys around him to support him. And it starts with LeBron, in my opinion.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. And to be fair, he scored 25 plus in the final 3 games of the Warriors series. If you take out the first game of the Warriors series, that would be the final 5 games, he shot nearly 38% from 3. He was at 19% in the first series. And again, final 5 games of the Warriors up to 38%. So he's gotten his offense going. In game 6 against the Warriors, he went to another level, but he still clearly also wasn't in top gear. Is he able to come out with that intensity from the jump in this series? Is that his new level, or is it the same thing like you were saying? Is he going to turn it on as we go? Again, that's why game 1 is so important in deciding how the rest of this series is going to go. I'm on LeBron over 3s for game 1. Again, it's a shame this podcast comes out the day after, but I think 3+ 3s at plus 140, that's going to be great value for LeBron. I think he's going to be aggressive, and he's a streaky shooter, so I think he's going to be taking a lot of 3s early. And if those fall, the Lakers have a great chance.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to be on the Nuggets -5.5. I also really like Nikola Jokic assists. I think there's going to be a lot of passing opportunities as they collapse in on him, and that's going to open up Jamal Murray for some points. So that's my 2 plays. And Grant, anything else on this? Are we moving on to football?
I'm just doubling down with you right there. I think throughout this series, the over on Jokic assist and the under on Murray assist, I think those are good plays.
All right, there we go. We're in line, baby. Come on now. All right, Grant, you riding?
Yeah, we're not. I was going to say you missed a golden opportunity to say we're in line and we're riding the line.
We're riding the line. We are riding the freaking line. We're a bunch of riders just riding lines out here. Grant, you riding?
Of course I'm riding. I'm riding right into the NFL season, Tanner. You started it. You lead us in.
All right, so last week we talked about the AFC East. We talked about the New England Patriots, the Buffalo Bills. Are they going to get over the hump? Tua's concussions. We talked about a lot of cool things last week. Aaron Rodgers in New York. But this week we get to talk about the AFC West, which features the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions of the world, the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll start with them, Grant. They're -150 to win this division. They're one of the only teams in a division future right now who have negative odds to win the whole thing. I think there's a few out there. But the majority of teams, the favorites are usually +110, +120, +130 in that range. So let's start with the Chiefs. Do you like them to win the division, Grant? And if so, why?
-150. I think you have to take this bet. I mean, it's the Chiefs. They've won the division for 7 straight seasons. They've won it all 5 seasons that Mahomes has been the full-time starter. They've made the conference championship in all 5 years that Mahomes has been a starter. The offense, they're still missing a number 1 wide receiver. I mean, it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I don't quite think he's a number 1, but with Mahomes, anything is possible. They still got Travis Kelce out there. I'm a little worried that they are overly reliant on him, and he is now 33 years old. Is an injury coming at some point? Obviously, we're not hoping for that, but it is possible. But he hasn't shown any signs of regression or anything like that. The defense played rookies the 3rd most snaps in the league last season, and they got better as the season went on. Karlaftis was really impressive. So as the season goes on, again, you just assume that defense is going to get better. And if Mahomes is able to be supported by a top 15 defense, then the Chiefs are going to be pretty much unstoppable. So yeah, -150, I would definitely be taking the Chiefs on that.
I would take the Chiefs, and we can talk about everything around Patrick Mahomes, but the bottom line is this team is Patrick Mahomes. He's good enough to win without a great receiving core, as we saw last year. He doesn't have the greatest this year. I think they're going to improve a little bit, especially if the young guys can step up. But when you look at Patrick Mahomes, he can change a game. Last year in the Super Bowl, all the stats, all the numbers indicated that the Philadelphia Eagles were the much better football team. And they were on paper. I think you take Mahomes out and you take Jalen Hurts out of the equation, which team's going to win that battle? It's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. But Mahomes, despite an injury, was still good enough to change that game and take it over. Obviously, there were some calls down the stretch there that weren't favorable for Eagles bettors, and I think the Philadelphia Eagles did do a great job giving that game away. But Mahomes was still fantastic on one leg, and he changed the game.
Yep, absolutely. And then their actual win total is set at 11.5. Tanner, in all the years that Mahomes has been the starter, they've won at least 12. So I'm a little interested. I'm kind of wondering why it's only set at 11.5. Do you have maybe a reason as to why, or are you a little confused like I am?
Well, and a lot of those seasons too, there are only 16 games played. So that's another thing to look at. The Chiefs, I don't know how tough their schedule is. That could be a reason at the 11.5 win mark. But again, they play in a relatively tough division too. The Chargers are going to give them a fight. The Raiders, I don't think the Raiders are going to be terrible and be pushovers again. The Broncos, it depends how Sean Payton can figure out Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is one of the only 5'11" quarterbacks to ever win a Super Bowl. Like, there is still good football left in there. They just got to bring it out. Again, I think Denver's going to have a decent defense too. So there's teams in this division that can give the Chiefs a fight. Is it enough fight to lose football games? I don't know.
I pulled up the Chiefs schedule right here, and I'm just going to pick out some of the hard games. So they've got the Lions on opening day on Thursday Night Football. It's at home. They're favored by 6.5.
Yeah.
They should win that. They've got the Jaguars in Jacksonville the next week. They're in or at the Jets 2 weeks after that, at the Vikings the week after that. So that's kind of a tough stretch. They've got the Dolphins coming to town. I mean, the Dolphins started the year, they started 7-0 when Tua played. So who knows how good they're going to be. They've got the Bills coming to Arrowhead. They've got the Bengals coming to Arrowhead, and their last game of the season is at the Chargers. So I guess that's kind of what you expect. It's not overly difficult, but it's not that easy either.
They're games that they should win, but they might not cover. That's probably what I would say.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And the Chiefs have been one of the worst teams against the spread. Am I making that up? Right.
No, they're 5-12 last year, I believe.
Yeah. And that's because the spreads are set at huge numbers.
Yeah. It's hard to cover those spreads. Like the Lions, I think were 12-5 last year ATS. And that's because they were given big numbers early from a dog perspective and they were able to cover it. So looking ahead to week one, though, just a quick little tea here. I do like the Lions in game one against the spread, at least. I think it's the perfect game for them because it's week one. So everyone's adjusting. The Chiefs are still going to be getting used to all their new guys. Same thing with the Lions. And Detroit's going to have a really good run game. And they can score. And that's the way to beat the Chiefs. To beat the Chiefs, you need to be able to score points.
Chargers plus 325 to win the division. This has been the team that is supposed to have been there in case the Chiefs slipped up a little. And the Chiefs haven't really slipped up, but the Chargers also haven't really capitalized on their opportunity. Now, the Chargers have gotten better in each of the last 4 seasons. They increased their win total from 5 to 7 to 9, and then last year they were 10-7, so they're getting better. This is arguably Justin Herbert's best chance in his young career to win MVP because Austin Eckler, he once out of town. He's probably not going to be playing for them, which means the running game is going to have less of a role in the offense. You also just drafted Quentin Johnston out of TCU in the first round, so you've got an elite wide receiver trio. Actually, this is just a random question I thought of. Where do we rank the Chargers wide receiver trio now that it's Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnston? That's right up there with the Bengals, surely. So Herbert's going to be in for a big year. The defense is healthy. The biggest problem is they can't stay healthy, but if they're able to remain on the field for all season, then this is one of the most talented groups in football. So for plus 325, I think it's spot on, and I think it is good value. But again, you're just banking on them staying healthy and the Chiefs giving away a game or two that you wouldn't expect them to.
Yeah, I can't trust Brandon Staley. Like, I trust Justin Herbert. I think the receiving core is amazing. I think the defense is good enough to win. I think Austin Eckler is fantastic, right? He's a fantasy football hero, but I can't trust Brandon Staley. Like, the amount of stupid decisions this man made last season and, like, still does it. Like, he's uber aggressive. You can't be that aggressive in the NFL. You need to punt and play defense sometimes. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose more times than not. It's hard to get a few yards. Like, he was going against analytics half the time, I think, and just saying, hey, I'm going for like 4th and 7. I think I saw this man line up like freaking 4th and 7 or 4th and 8 one time when he didn't have to, like with the intention of running a play. I can't. No, Andy Reid's just going to outcoach him. So all things equal, Andy Reid's a much better coach than him. I can't trust Brandon Staley. He could get fired middle of the season, honestly. This team's too talented not to win, and he's the reason they're not going to win.
I don't think he's going to get fired in the middle of the season unless they're winless or something like that. But I think this is his last chance to prove himself. I mean, any coach that gives up a 27-0 lead in the playoffs got to be thinking they're lucky stars that they still have a job in that same employer the next year. So this is his last chance. I think at worst, the Chargers have to make the playoffs and win a game for him to keep his job. Now, if they win the division title and then lose in the first round, maybe it's a little different and he keeps his job either way. But there has to be some measurable component of success. It can't just be more of the same.
Yeah, and if you're the Chargers front office too, you got to look on paper and say, okay, what do the Chiefs have that we don't have? Justin Herbert, or what they have? What do the Chiefs have that we don't have? Patrick Mahomes. We have Justin Herbert, though. We have a much better receiving core. I think we have an overall much more talented offense. The Chiefs lost a lot of offensive linemen in free agency. And then defensively, I think the Chargers are better on defense, too. So it's like, I think on paper, they're a better team outside of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and of course, the quarterback is the most important position. So from top to bottom, it doesn't really matter. You're going to favor the team with the better quarterback more times than not. But what you're saying is, the Chargers should at least be competitive. They should be splitting games with them, and that's not what's been happening.
Yep. All right, Broncos, Sean Payton, coach of the year, plus 1,200, take it to the bank right now because he's going to lead this team to a decent record, and Russell Wilson is going to figure out how to throw football again, and it's all going to be thanks to Sean Payton.
Real quick, by the way, Tanner, forgot to mention Chargers over-under was 9.5 wins. The Broncos is 8.5 wins, actually, so just one game less than the Chargers. And the Broncos, for them to be that high, considering how awful they looked last year, your coach of the year bet is kind of in play. That's what the sportsbooks are telling you. For plus 1,200, doesn't quite seem to line up with the improvement that they're expecting from the Broncos this year. Now, we know how good their defense was, but their offense was just pitiful. Scored just 16 points a game. Tanner, here's a wild stat. The Broncos scored more than 16 points in only 5 games last year in a 17-game schedule. They only scored more than 16 5 times, and they went 3-2 in those games. So they are begging for improvement on offense, and they have Russell Wilson, who earlier in the show you said is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They have a former coach of the year and Super Bowl champion on the sideline. If that offense can be okay, the defense is elite. It's a top 5 defense. They will make it into the wild card, or at least they'll be in the hunt at the very least.
Yeah, they just got to score. Like if they would have just scored 3 touchdowns a game last season, they would have been a really good team. Like that's just what it comes down to. Russell Wilson looked like he forgot to play football a lot, though. Nathaniel Hackett was just the biggest disgrace to being a head coach ever. And I don't even know, like when you look at Nathaniel Hackett and you look at how bad his team was last year, his offense specifically, like he's still an OC. I know he was doing head coaching duties, but he still is an OC, and he was a reputable OC with Aaron Rodgers. Like, how could this offense be so bad last year with talent too?
I don't know. I don't have the answer. And to be honest, I don't really care moving forward. I have so much respect for Sean Payton. I hold him in the highest regard. I think you could give him pretty much anybody in the league, and he would be able to figure it out. And you've got to keep in mind, he had options. You don't think he wouldn't have minded waiting a year to see if the Chargers job became available with Brandon Staley leaving and then Justin Herbert's there? You don't think that he's best friends with Jerry Jones, or at least Jerry Jones loves him? You don't think that he was under consideration for maybe being a Mike McCarthy replacement in Dallas? And you've got Dak Prescott, you've got America's team, you've got maybe the best top 3 defense in football. So he chose the Broncos. So clearly he sees something there and he thinks he can make it work. And if he feels like that, I believe in him. I've seen what he's done in New Orleans. And important to remember, Tanner, Drew Brees, another 5'11", Hall of Fame Super Bowl quarterback. So he's done it before. He's stepping into a familiar situation with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Russell Wilson's got to make his phone number available to his teammates a little more, I think, and not have to go through his agents and stuff to talk to him. But if he does that, combined with Sean Payton, I think this team will be pretty good.
Yeah, I think they're going to be pretty good. Now, plus 475 to win the division. I still would say that's a bit of a donation to the sports books. I don't see a world in which that happens. But over 8.5 wins, I think that line is kind of perfectly placed. And I could easily see them going with 9 just as easily as I could see them going with 7. Push comes to shove, because the division is tough, I would probably be going with that maybe 7-8 line. But I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with somebody going on the over.
Yeah, I agree with that. Raiders plus 1,200, over under 7.5 wins. I don't think this team is going to be as bad as people think they're going to be. They have a lot of weapons. You have Josh Jacobs. My one fear is Devontae Adams. He seems like he's very unhappy on his Instagram story. So that's going to play into how this offense does.
Yeah, I think you've got to be worried about Devontae. I mean, he had Aaron Rodgers, one of the 5 most talented quarterbacks ever, maybe one of the 2 most talented quarterbacks ever. And then he goes to play with Derek Carr, who's not the same caliber, but he's his friend from college. And now it's just Jimmy Garoppolo. It's a step back in terms of quality. And even if he's a low quality quarterback, if he was throwing Devontae a bunch of deep balls every game, getting him great individual stats, maybe it would help keep him happier. That's not the type of quarterback that Garoppolo is. Josh McDaniels, good as an offensive coordinator, very bad as a head coach from what we've seen so far. I think his happiness is going to be a big situation to monitor there. But with the rest of the team, I mean, what's the modern NFL about? It's about having your quarterback sorted out and having playmakers around him, and then being able to rush the quarterback on the opposite side. Well, Jimmy G wins games, whether or not that translates to Vegas, we're going to see. They've got Josh Jacobs. They've got Darren Waller. They've got Devontae Adams. So they got the weapons down. And then on the other side, you've got Max Crosby on one end. You've got Chandler Jones on the other. And then you got Tyree Wilson, who you just drafted 7th overall. So you should be able to get after the quarterback. Are there weak spots of this roster? Sure. But like you, I don't think they're going to be as bad as many people are projecting them to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be much better. But Devontae Adams' Instagram stories are very, very alarming sometimes. He basically showcases how the Raiders don't contact him on his Instagram stories, and they're fun. But yeah,
over under 7.5 wins, Tanner. Which side are you on?
Over
7.5.
I'm going to go over. I think they win 8 games.
I'm going to go under. I think that 6-7 line is appropriate, but I think they're going to be competitive in those games.
I think competitive, they just got to figure out. I mean, they were in so many positions last year to win games that they didn't win, just because I think it was coaching experience combined with not having the great talent. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo is still a Super Bowl quarterback. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo can ball. And I don't think people realize that, how good he is at managing games. Now, they got to play a different style, but that plays right into what Josh McDaniels wants to do. He wants to run the ball. Josh Jacobs is a workhorse. They're going to pound the rock with him, and they're going to win football games.
Look, we're going to see. I disagree with you about Jimmy G being a Super Bowl quarterback, but I mean, we're going to find out.
No, I know he's been to a Super Bowl before, Grant.
Okay, but so Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Is Trent Dilfer a Super Bowl winning quarterback at face value?
Look what Jimmy G's done. His resume in the NFL for a kid out of a 1AA school is pretty impressive.
It is impressive. Absolutely. He's exceeded expectations. This isn't a personal attack of him.
He's a top 10 quarterback. 100%.
No, he's not. Not even. No.
Yeah.
Do we have to go through the list right now?
Let me see. Let me pull it up.
All right. We're gonna go in order. You tell me when
no, I'm going through it. I'm going top 50. We'll go top 15.
No, I'm doing it right now.
All right.
So
Jalen Hurts. No, I'm going through it. I do it. All right.
All
Not as good as Jalen. You count him. Not as good as Jalen Hurts. Not as good as Patrick Mahomes. Better than Mac Jones. Justin Fields. I'm going to say he's better than Justin Fields because he's winning football games. Okay. Not as good. He plays for the Raiders, Packers, whatever. He's better than Jordan Love. He's better than Kirk Cousins. He's better.
He's not better than Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, he is. He's better.
No, he's not. He's not even close.
You have to apply winning to this formula, Grant. When has Kirk Cousins ever won as much as Jimmy Garoppolo?
Kirk Cousins made it to a conference championship with a 13-3 team. Jimmy Garoppolo happened to be on a team which was the only team in NFL history with a first-team All-Pro at every position. If you gave Kirk Cousins that, he would have been able to lose in the Super Bowl too.
Let me see something.
Tanner, just let me go through the list. You're making it too complicated. Mahomes 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3, Aaron Rodgers. Yes or no? I still say yes.
You still have to say yes, but last season was a problem.
Okay, so now we're at 4. We have Lamar Jackson 5, Trevor Lawrence 6, Justin Herbert 7, Jalen Hurts 8, Dak Prescott 9.
No, I'm not putting Dak above him.
Dak is better than Jimmy G.
No, he's not, Grant. What has Dak done besides implode in the playoffs?
They're the same. They're the same. Jimmy G has imploded in the playoffs. What?
Jimmy G has done better in the playoffs than Dak Prescott.
No, he has not.
Yeah, he has.
This is ridiculous. I'm looking up Jimmy G's quarterback rating in the playoffs because I don't want to get it wrong, but I know it's like in the 20s.
Jimmy G has a 5-2 record in the playoffs, Grant. So tell me.
He's been awful in every one of them.
Finds a way to win.
All right. Well, you're lucky I don't have the numbers in front of me. Oh, psych. I do. In Jimmy G's playoff career,
Dak Prescott's 2-4 in the playoffs.
In Jimmy G's playoff career, he's thrown 4 touchdowns in 6 games. He has 6 interceptions. He has a quarterback rating of 45. He's completed 60% of his passes, and he's averaging 170 yards per game.
You don't get it, though. You don't get it. He is a game manager. He is a game.
I know what a game manager is. He isn't managing the game.
He is, Grace. He's 5-2 in the playoffs. Dak Prescott's 2-4.
Okay, whatever. So, we'll take Dak out of it. We're still at 8. Still at 8. Do you like Daniel Jones? Are you putting Daniel Jones ahead of Jimmy G?
Daniel Jones ahead of Jimmy G.
Okay, I'm not either. Kirk Cousins, I have him as 9. You don't, whatever. Jared Goff, after last year, you have to put Jared Goff ahead of him.
You put Jared Goff ahead. He's a Super Bowl. Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl, too.
That's true. He has been to a Super Bowl. Derek Carr, I think they're about equal.
I would put Jimmy G a little ahead.
Geno Smith, you have to put him ahead of Jimmy G after last year. You have to.
Yeah, one good year, though. I can't say that.
Okay, but what has Jimmy G done recently? He didn't even play last year.
But like with Geno Smith didn't really like Geno Smith's stats weren't overwhelming. He was throwing for like 180 yards a game. He was just fish. He was game manager too. So let's not blow it out of proportion, Grant. Like he was doing something.
Okay, Matt Stafford. If he's healthy, he's better than Jimmy G.
If.
Okay, it's an if for Jimmy G too. He's injured all the time. So with you making some very questionable decisions, we didn't even talk about Tua.
Tua. If you stuck Jimmy G with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, he's going to throw for thousands of yards. Like Tua is not that good. Okay, Grant.
Okay, so with you denying some blame, so with you lying about players being worse than him, we're still at 12. There's easily 16 or 17 that are better.
He's right around. He's 15 or lower. He's a top.
You said he's a top 10 quarterback, which is not true.
But you added some guys in too, like Geno Smith. You added in, like this was going in.
I didn't count Geno.
He's top 16.
Okay, he's top 16. Cool. Like
Jimmy G is good enough to be a top 12 to top 13 quarterback in the NFL.
He's all you said was he's a top 10 quarterback, and he's not.
He's right around there. He's right around there.
Jimmy G is not that good. I need you to realize that. I know he's from New England, so you have this love for him.
He wins football games, Grant.
The teams that he is on wins football games.
And he's the quarterback for. Hey, what's Dak Prescott? Dak Prescott should be better than 2-4 in the playoffs with the teams that he's had around him.
He should be, yeah.
Should be. There you go.
And Jimmy Garoppolo should be better than 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions with a first-team All-Pro at every position.
He just has to hand the ball off. They don't. His numbers are lower because they don't ask him to do a whole lot.
Okay, but if he just has to hand the ball off, then why are you giving him credit? Any quarterback in the league can hand the ball off.
He wins games, Grant. Finds ways to win.
The players that he's handing the ball to win the games.
The
San Francisco 49ers defense wins the game.
He's 5-2 in the playoffs, Grant. He can still spin.
Right. We're going in circles here, Tanner. Wrap it up.
5-2 in the playoffs. Take the over. All right, MLB.
No, whoa, you're skipping out on America's favorite segment here, Tanner. Did you hear? Tanner, real quick, did you hear? Americans have bet $220 billion on sports since it was legalized since 2018. How much of that do you think you're responsible for? Don't actually answer that. What is the future of sports betting? It's everywhere right now.
Everywhere. It will be the mainstream media. It will be the non-mainstream media. It will be everything. Like that's what sports is moving in. People just bet. It's great.
Yeah, it's fun for us, that's for sure. Tim Anderson, Chicago White Sox, mouths, "I hate this place," while standing on base. The White Sox are 14-28. They're 9 games back in the AL Central. Do you blame Tim Anderson?
No, if I was Tim Anderson, I would hate Chicago too. I mean, who wants to? First of all, if you got to go to Chicago, you got to play for the White Sox. Like, it's the Cubs. The Cubs are up here. The White Sox are down here, no matter what the records are. So I wouldn't want to play for the White Sox in general. And then the team around him sucks. So I wouldn't want to be there either. And then you got people like they're giving the beer, I guess, is more expensive than the tickets now in Chicago.
Where what was maybe you know what I'm talking about, the beer, what were the special beer, the huge beer glasses? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Some ballpark. Oh, I've got to find a picture of it. They're like 6 feet long beer glass, something weird, crazy like that. I'm going to find a picture. I'll send it to you. Yeah. Al Horford holds Joel Embiid to 3 of 16 shooting as the primary defender. Meanwhile, Tatum was seeking out Embiid, and Tatum goes 8 of 10 for 24 points with Embiid guarding him. Again, just an extremely embarrassing performance by an MVP.
Well, I'm glad Al Horford actually did something, because in the game after he said he was an elite shooter, he went 0 for 7 from the field. So at least he did something noteworthy. And then Jayson Tatum has a massive unit. So, like, not surprised there.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. Go check out our YouTube shorts if you want more information on that. And then Joel Embiid, kind of harping on him here, unfortunately. The largest drop-off in scoring by an MVP from regular season to postseason. And Embiid is now the only NBA MVP to have never made a conference finals. Tanner, this is the guy who talked for years about wanting to win the MVP. Maybe he probably should have been talking about, I want to win a championship, because that's the one thing that's really separating him from the rest of his peers now. And it's pretty noticeable.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jokic needs to win one, but he's also, like we were talking about before, he's not that big social media guy. He's not flashy. Like, he just wants to go back to his home country and, like, do whatever they do in his home country in the off season. That's all
he wants to sit in his barn with his horses. That's where he received the MVP award. So
Jokic with the Jokic brothers, whatever they do in the off season. Like, so again, like, if he wins a championship and people talk about him not winning a championship, I don't think he cares. He wants to win, obviously, don't get me wrong, but, like, if people are talking about him saying like, okay, he's not a star player because he hasn't won a championship, he just wants to go back to his home country and make steak.
Yep, agreed. All right, Tanner, MLB. Let's get it started by talking about the MVP race. We're still early in the season, but it's never too early to react to how the odds are shaping up. And there are pretty sizable favorites in both of the leagues so far. So let's start with the American League, the obvious favorite, Shohei Ohtani plus 100. A very rare instance where it's not a batter or a pitcher that you're voting for. It's actually a bit of both. His teammate Mike Trout next in line, and then you got Vladdy Jr., Wander Franco, and Aaron Judge filling out the order behind him there. Ohtani's, he's the favorite in the sports books. He's the favorite for me. And I also think he has the most potential because even if he has a bad day in the box, he might go 8 innings, might throw, 10 strikeouts. He has so many opportunities to add to his resume and what his case for the MVP.
So the league is going to have to change how they give the MVP award because he can't win it every single season because he does something that nobody else does. He pitches at a high level and he hits at a high level. And obviously that is the most valuable player in the sport, someone that can do everything at such a high level. So Major League Baseball needs to figure it out or he's just going to win the award for the next 10 years straight. And if Judge wouldn't have had the season he had last year, arguably one of the greatest seasons in baseball history, the greatest season in Yankees history, Ohtani would have won it last year too. So they need to figure this out because I don't want to see Ohtani win it every year.
Do you think the solution is just renaming the Cy Young to the pitcher MVP? Come up with something sexier than that, but just make it that award?
Well, so I think if you need to divide it, and I know they haven't done this, but like MVP should be offensive player now, and Cy Young should be the MVP for the mound. And if Ohtani fits into one, great, but I don't think you can have an award. Like he has an advantage over Trout, Vladdy, Wander Franco, and Aaron Judge automatically just because he does both.
And he does both at an elite level. Like the guy's just awesome. He's unbelievable.
He's unreal. He's the best player in the history of the sport. But you can't just give him the MVP every year because he does. So like he has an advantage over everyone else because of what he does.
But at the same time, doesn't the fact he has that advantage, it's because he's so unique. Shouldn't that also make him the MVP? Like you said, he's clearly the most valuable player that's probably ever played the game of baseball. So does he not deserve the MVP every year?
No, he doesn't. Well, I think they got to change it up a little bit because he's in a class of his own. So give him the Ohtani Award.
I understand what you're saying, though. It's kind of just unfair right now.
Unfair.
It's like how Wilt Chamberlain would average 50 points and 50 rebounds, and you go, he's just out there on his own. Yeah. He's unlike everybody else. Ohtani's in that league.
Like he doesn't have to have the best offensive season out of the group. He doesn't have to have the best pitching season. Like if he's like above average pitching and above average offense, and he does them both together, he's automatically the front runner in the MVP just because he's that guy. Now in the Cy Young too, like I imagine he's doing decent there. I don't know if they're giving to him, but he's been pitching really, really well. And he's been hitting well too, but just like him doing something at an above average level on both aspects puts him ahead of everyone else, even if they're having a tremendous season. There was still talks last year, Aaron Judge not winning the MVP because of Ohtani. And Ohtani was not as good as he was last season, this season. And there were still talks that they were going to give it to him over Aaron Judge.
Yeah, I'm looking at Ohtani's numbers right now. As far as pitching goes, he's 5-1. He's got a 3.23 ERA, 0.91 WHIP. And his batting, he's hitting 303 at the plate, and he's got 9 home runs, 29 RBIs right now. That's just he's good, man. He's good.
But if you take both those away and put them separately, he's not the top hitter in baseball. He's not top pitcher in baseball. Like 0.91 WHIP is fantastic, obviously, but like he's not in the MVP discussion as a sole hitter or a sole pitcher.
Yeah, I understand. If those are two separate players, neither one of them is winning the award. I get what you're saying.
You're a really good player. You're a really good above average baseball player, but you're not winning an MVP for what those stats are.
Yep, I totally get that. So of these, Tanner, I assume you like Ohtani to win the award just like I do, but if there's a potential riser of these next 4, do you have a prediction as to who it might be?
I would say Vladdy or Wander Franco. Those would be my 2 picks. I think Judge obviously he had 2 home runs yesterday, I think, but yeah, I can't see him doing what he did last season again this season. I really like what Vladdy Jr. has been able to do. I like what Bo Bichette's been able to do. I think he's actually have better numbers than Vladdy, but Vladdy is still the face of that team. But Wander Franco and Vladdy would be my 2 picks.
I'd go with Franco. I think he's the best offensive player on that team, and that team might have the best record in baseball. So I think that's where he would get the best case from. But that's if we have to pick someone other than Ohtani, and we like Ohtani. In the National League, Ronald Acuna, he's leading them at plus 165. Got a similar sort of gap on the rest of the field. Then you got Pete Alonso plus 1,000, Tatis plus 1,100, Mookie Betts plus 1,400, Juan Soto plus 1,500. Juan Soto still up there for a guy who we were talking about coming on the show. Seems like he forgot how to play baseball. So the odds makers still like him. And he's turned it around, obviously. For me, again, I think Acuna, he makes sense there. He's the best player on what might be the best team in that division, or in that league, rather. But I think Mookie Betts also has a chance to shoot up this list with what we've seen from the Dodgers recently.
Yeah, I like Mookie Betts if I had to pick one. Soto and Tatis playing for San Diego. The Padres are just choking every single night of the week, it seems. So I don't like either of those too much. Pete Alonso, the New York Mets, I mean, they should be embarrassed. They just got dominated by the Nationals yesterday. I love Acuna here. If there is one guy that I have to pick that's probably going to win, I know the odds are saying it right now, plus 165. It's going to be Acuna. He does everything for that Braves team. He's by far the best player on the best team in baseball. Simple.
Yep, I agree with you. I like we've talked about this all the time, Tanner. Favorites are the favorites for a reason.
Yep.
It is what it is, unfortunately. So maybe this isn't the most original insight in the world. We gave you some of the people we like to rise up the awards, and we will come back and talk about it later. But right now, Ohtani and Acuna are the MVPs. It's just, are they going to sustain that throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable at this point in the season that Ohtani doesn't blow my mind because people love Ohtani at plus 100. But the fact that Acuna is plus 165 and the next closest plus 1,000 is pretty remarkable. And it speaks to the season that he is having this year.
And coming off of a major injury, too.
Could be comeback player of the year, too. Should be.
Yeah, that would be pretty impressive. Tanner, we'll save the best for last, which is your Boston Red Sox. A little foreshadowing what's to come. Let's talk about the Dodgers, since I brought them up with Mookie Betts real quick. So they've won 6 straight. They've won 14 of their last 16. They're now plus 240 to win the National League. The Braves are plus 240 to win the National League. The Dodgers are plus 320, and then the Padres are plus 500. Are you ready to hand this league back over to the Dodgers? Because we were talking about how it's kind of open, and we were even saying maybe the Mets and the Braves would be the ones mixing up for the title. Dodgers are creeping back up there, and they're red hot right now.
Yeah, I would say the Dodgers have a very good chance. I'd rather bet the Dodgers at plus 320 than I would the Braves at plus 240. Will Smith's been getting the job done every single night of the week for them. And with this team in general, they have great pitching. Dustin May has stepped up big. Clayton Kershaw is still putting together fantastic innings. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy's back this season. He's hitting for power. So they've really had the guys step up that they've needed to step up. And it's going to be a great series no matter what. The thing about baseball, anyone can win over 7 games. You can take this might be a little bit of an extreme example, but you could take the Oakland Athletics in a 7-game series against the Braves. Like, there is a world where the Oakland Athletics win 4 of those 7 games. And that's just because it's baseball. Probably not going to happen. That might be a little extreme, but there is a world where anyone can beat anyone in the postseason over 7 games. It's baseball. So the Padres sneaking in at plus 500, they could win if they get hot at the right time. That's what it comes down to. Who's playing great baseball? So if I'd pick a bet right now, it'd be the Dodgers at plus 320. It's also not worth playing necessarily for me at this point. It's just the odds are a little too short considering how much baseball we have ahead.
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely wouldn't be putting any bets on this right now. But if I had to right now, Dodgers plus 320 makes the most sense. Definitely fading the Padres at plus 500 for right now. If they go through a losing spell and they fall way down and they start to get hot at the end of the season and you're able to get them for better value, then maybe, because like you said, it's about playing well at the right time of year. And they have superstar players on their team. If they go into the postseason riding a great 3 weeks of baseball, they could absolutely win, the league, but they just got to catch them at the right time. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm holding off on this one for now. And then our last topic here in the baseball, Tanner. This is your floor. Red Sox. Give us our weekly update on the Red Sox. They've lost 4 straight. They've lost 6 of their last 7. What has started to go wrong?
We're not hitting great. We're not pitching great. So before we could hit, we've never been able to pitch. So now that we're not hitting and we're not pitching, it's really not a good combination. It used to be fun being a Red Sox fan. This recent stretch has been pretty tough. The Cardinals, one of the worst teams in baseball, who have talent, but one of the worst teams in baseball, coming in and sweeping us in Boston was not good. The Mariners are whooping our ass this week. So not a good week for the Boston Red Sox. Season's not over. Still got a lot of fight in this team. Still
2 games over 500.
2 games over 500. They're still in position to get a wild card spot. There's so much baseball left to be played. Right now, they just got to stay alive. If they stay alive now, they can do anything down the stretch. I'm not concerned. But
Are you encouraged by Chris Sale going 8 innings, giving up only 1 earned run?
oh yeah, I'm definitely encouraged because for us to be good, Chris Sale has to be good because nobody else is that good. I mean, Pavetta's going tonight. He'll probably get shelled. Just one of those nights, Grant. It's one of those tough weeks to be a Red Sox fan. Losing 6 year past 7 after you had a ton of momentum, sweeping teams left and right. It's not good. But again, you're going to get hot, you're going to get cold. You're going to get hot, you're going to get cold. It's the way it is. So luckily, our hot streak before this, we're still up overtime. It's like gambling. You got to be up overtime.
And we are way, way, way from this coming into true effect. But right now, the Sox are a game and a half out of the wild card. They're behind the Astros and the Yankees. I think the Astros are going to move up, and I think it's going to be a battle between the Yankees, maybe even the Blue Jays, and potentially the Sox if they can keep this sort of, oscillating. We're really good, then we're really bad. If they can just keep it streaky instead of just becoming straight out bad, then I think they can be in the wild card hunt.
Yeah, so if 3 teams make the wild card, you have the Orioles are probably looking good to make one. You're going to have the Astros will win the AL West in a minute. Yep. I'm not concerned about that. So you're going to get a team in the AL West in the wild card hunt. And then you're going to get the Yankees and the Red Sox battling out. So it's going to be an interesting series. Luckily, the AL Central is terrible. So none of those teams factor into this contest at all. Whoever wins the division advances and the rest suck.
Yeah, poor Tim Anderson.
Tim Anderson sucks. No, he doesn't suck. Tim Anderson's one of the best players on that team. Anderson and Cease, everyone else is just dog water.
Tanner, that just about does it for this episode of Ride the Line, doesn't it?
That was a grind, Grant. That was a good baseball talk right there.
Good baseball talk. Got to feed you, Tanner. Got to feed the people of Ride the Line. Make sure that you guys are all subscribed to the channel. We got content coming out all the time. We've got these podcasts. We've got smaller clips. We got other little short form clips you don't want to miss out on. Like the video. Helps us out a lot. Leave a comment. Let us know what games you're looking forward to betting on this weekend. And Tanner, get us on out of here.
That was Ride the Line, the greatest podcast in sports betting and entertainment. Make sure you follow, share, smash the subscribe button, and we will see you next Wednesday for another episode.